So when we see the workspace particularly empty, that can only mean one thing, right? If your answer to the previous question was, here we go again, then you're absolutely right. Here we are. It's, I guess this is some type of unboxing thing. Again, fresh box. We get to experience the contents together. This is something I had no intention of buying. But another MST is making its way into the fleet. And this time, we're going properly small. The CMX. This is basically a Suzuki Jimny. So we're looking at the wee 242 millimeter wheelbase. And I've made it pretty vocal in the past that I'm not a huge fan of RTR. But this was an issue of Maiden giving you that deal you can't pass up, which is, for whatever reason, all of the MSTs appear to be on clearance. So at like $300, this seemed ridiculous to me, as I know the RTR gear in it is all going to have to be replaced. But it kept dropping and dropping and dropping until we got to a point where the RTR CMX J4 hit $218 for an RTR. Ooh, look. Little rhinos. At $218, I can forgive. Well, there's a lot of stuff in there. I can forgive quite a lot. Oh, the body appears to be largely unassembled. I'm fine with that. Like I say, oh my God, it's adorable. I prefer kits, but I've not seen sold anywhere domestically the CMX, the short wheelbase CMXs sold as kits. What is holding that in there? Oh, zip ties. So let's see if I can successfully extricate this thing. Also, in the little blurbs they provide on the internet about one particular model compared to another, they claim that the servo is a Savox and the speed control is a hobby wing. So this is probably a 1060, a 1040 or a 1060. And oh, and it is it's servo and axle, and that is indeed a Savox. So though, I don't think these tires have foams in them. This thing weighs about 2 pounds, and it feels like a big chunk of that is front battery tray. Oh man, I ordered the fenders because I was like, man, I gotta have some fenders with it. It comes with fenders. It didn't mention anywhere that it came with fenders. Well, now I guess I have 2 sets of them. I guess I gotta buy another one. Look at that. Look at that little guy. Yeah, not even drilled for body mounts. So this is semi RTR, which I kind of appreciate more. I'm okay with this. Look at that little guy. And just to give you some small idea of how small this guy is, I can't believe I have 2 sets of fenders. Here's the Vanimal. Yeah. Are those though, it's hard to believe those are the same species. But if you've watched any of the, here's some internet references. In the Matt's Off-Road Recovery, when they went to extract the golden nugget, which is a Jimny, just like this, I don't think that's far from the truth. It's so small. Like, the real life version of this is so small. So I'm going to have to crack into those manuals and get the body mounts cut out and take a look at this. I knew to expect some things like the suspension links are plastic. Like, every link on this thing is plastic. But what do you want for $200? I am going to have to solder a plug because there is a Dean's, but supposedly the speed control is 3S ready. That battery tray is far too large. I'm guessing that's the receiver box? Interesting. Wow. I don't think there's any oil in the shocks either. But, as is the process when I buy an RTR, we do the absolute minimum required to make it drivable, and then we're going to drive it. And if you've watched any of the other series, you will definitely know I've got options. If I want to put a 550 in there, things really have to change, but I don't think I'm going to need to. I will definitely weigh this. Yeah, there are definitely no foams in there, and they are glued. So maybe it doesn't need foam. It's so light. Anyway, I will get to, first off, I will solder a plug on that. I will get a battery in place. Oh, let's take a look. How does it compare to like what comes in a Charisma? Oh, it's a little looks like a old-timey Futaba. That's not bad. It's got trims. You know, as far as we're going to give you a radio, this is fine. I would take this over this abomination any day of the week. I mean, it feels okay. It's got a little rubber wheel for the steering wheel. So I will get this thing ready to accept power and make it go back and forth a little bit. Not much involved in getting this thing to go. RTR is RTR. Put an XT60 on there. I kind of like that the batteries are held down with just an O-ring that goes over two little hoops there. It has a 26-turn brushed motor, which, I mean, time will tell how that works. They announced, it's on the packaging and everything else, Servo manufactured by Savox, and yeah, I definitely believe it. It doesn't seem fast or strong, but it does seem loud. 26 turns is definitely 26 turns. So no foams and almost no low speed control. Like I can just, if I just touch my finger against it. There we go. So, I mean, you know, that's not awful. But we have a great number of motor options. But long before drag brake, that's not bad. I mean, we'll have to see on the rocks for sure. I will have to cut into this and these. Those are some long body mounts. And figure out where the body mounts are supposed to go on this. I will crack into the manual, the exploded manual, and see if it gives me any hints on how to set this thing up. And we will be on rocks pretty quickly. It is an adorable little thing. And at this point in the assembly, because this thing falls into a altogether new category of what I would call quasi RTR, in that the chassis comes assembled and it has wheels on it and etc. The body is painted, but nothing is really assembled. The fenders came just like this, J4 front and rear. So you have to cut those out. There's no instructions really of any kind on how to do that. Just shows you how to cut them out. They're pretty great. They go on super easy. They give you extra set of sliders. There's an optional front bumper that doesn't have the fair lead for the winch and the holes for the lights, so you can just have a blank bumper on the front. It has body post adjustments for you name it. It even has an insert if you want to put an LED in for the third brake light. Rear wiper hinges. As far as an RTR body goes, particularly a Lexan body, this one is up there. Never have I pulled a body out of the box and wanted to put LEDs in it more than this one. And if I can get the way it's painted, it's clear. So you could put side indicator lights in. You could put a tail light in. The fenders really do add something to it. Look at that. So, having not driven it at all so far, the only potential drawbacks I can see is that there is no foam in the tires. They are foamless. And there's definitely no oil in the shocks. As a matter of fact, the shocks appear to have the screw hole for a bleeder screw, and that screw is not in there. There is more stuff in the bag. Maybe there are screws for that. I don't know. I haven't really dove into it that deep because I'm pretty sure I'll probably replace the shocks with something else at some point. I think it's highly likely that the motor will be replaced, as that's pretty hot. And the stiffness of the springs, this is one of the few RTRs I've experienced so far where I believe I need to put some preload clips on, because the way it's sprung, it's sitting a good bit lower in the front with just the weight of a little 1500 pack. And this thing feels like it needs some 50 weight in there. The suspension feels, other than that, it feels good. And digging through the manual, the way these are built, when it said that it had plastic links, I thought they meant plastic links, like what we're used to from the old Traxxas days. No, this is the usual rod end that MST uses with the plastic pivot ball. So of course I got to order 2 bags of pivot balls because I do not like plastic on plastic. They have the long set screw in there and then just this plastic piece, and it has the breakdown of how long all these pieces are. I still have all that Delrin rod left over and that brass rod left over from when I was making the rods for the banana. So this guy will invariably get brass lowers and Delrin uppers. And it's the same way with the front steer link. It's basically 2 giant long rod ends with a little threaded guy holding them together in the middle. So this is for me, this is a very refreshing RTR. It takes a little bit of work. You have to fit and cut the body mounts. You have to cut out the inner fenders, which are thankfully factory painted matte black. The servo in this, even if this servo is of great performance, and I think it's great, it's still a Savox, and like, is it making popcorn in there? So, but that said, I think it is in a sufficient condition to be put to some rocks. So when we run an RTR, we run the RTR as it came, which with this one was a little more work than what you usually have. Oh, and what Charisma did not include, but this one does, the mirrors are actually mirrors. So I still, having not driven it, just looking at it, just like that, the original price that these things went for, about $300, I still think that's a little steep. I mean, $100 more gets you an Ecto. Now, we're getting down close to $200, and other manufacturers, like, why are we not getting bodies like this from everybody? It's got windshield wipers, it's got rear view mirrors, there's little, it's got key lock stickers. I absolutely love the look of this. I'm anxious to see how it does on 90 millimeter tall tires that are quite skinny and have no foams in them. But I mean, I'm imagining the side hilling is not going to be great. But that's enough of that talk. It's going to go from just like this. I'll throw some body clips on there, and we'll see how this does on rocks. Nope. Can't do it. I tried to do it, but just driving this thing for a few moments on level ground, the complete and utter lack of damping. I like this little adorable thing too much to roll it into oblivion on the first obstacle I tried to ascend. So it came back in here. I pulled one of the shocks off. It had just a thin coating of oil inside of it. So I thought, I'll just add some oil, put the oil in it, cycled the shock once. It just all splooged right out the bottom. So the seals look fine, but they don't run the little plastic spacer in between the seals. So I'm hoping that that's the problem, because I do have all sorts of stuff to rebuild these. In terms of plastic bodied shocks, these aren't bad, but they will more than likely be replaced. They are very oily. The springs feel, they feel okay, if a little softer, even for how light this is. I did notice upon pulling the first wheel off to get the hex off, to get to the shock, you are seeing correctly. This thing is completely fitted with bushings, which is something I haven't seen come on an RTR since, the Traxxas vehicles of the 90s. So the CMX, at least in this configuration, as an RTR, is not an RTR. This is an ARTR. This is almost ready to run. You have to cut the body mounts and fit the body mounts and put the body posts in the body and mount all the accessories to the body. And like directly out of the box, it's definitely not drivable. Maybe some others that haven't been sitting on a shelf for a while still have oil in their shocks, but this is not drivable like this. It's basically like there's no suspension on it at all. And like I say, I don't want to mess it up. So I'm gonna tear into these, get all 4 shocks off, see what I can do about the seals, see if I can get these things to cycle sort of properly, and then, fingers crossed, hopefully actually set it onto a rock. I've got the first 2 put back together, and the only change I made to them, obviously other than putting in some 50 weight, was the addition of these little fellas right here. They are very small. I only have a couple of these, probably from some ancient sedan shocks. So, even in ARTR terms, I would consider this a dramatic omission because basically this thing does not work without them. Here's what the rear looks like. There's no damping at all. And here's the front with just the addition of those little poly washers. They are most definitely emulsion shocks. There's no bladder, and in order to get full stroke, you have to only fill them about 2/3 of the way. So if you cycle them enough, you can get the air and oil to mix, and then they get quite smooth. I'm not especially a fan of shocks that operate this way. In crawlers, shocks are not super critical. A lot of what people buy and put on are for cosmetic reasons. But I think these will at least be okay for taking it out and stopping it from rolling over. But I can pretty much guarantee they will be replaced. So now it's just a matter of first removing and completely disassembling the rear shocks, putting these two little fellas, one in each, filling them up with oil, and then this thing should be able to move sort of confidently. That's all 4 shocks with their little washers installed, filled with 50, and reinstalled on the vehicle. I think the suspension action looks a little slow, but I think it's probably going to help because this little fella, you can't get it to sit lower. The only way to get it to sit lower would be to go to a shorter shock because these shocks are the springs are pretty soft. This is just me speculating, but I feel like the complete lack of foam I think it's going to be a problem. The springs are pretty soft. The tires are extra soft because there are no foams. What I do have are the takeoff tires from the Vanimal, and they are just the tiniest bit bigger. And they do have foams. So, they will definitely be one to try. I also have, let me reach over here. I've got the KLRs, which they're fairly bigger because these are proper class 1s. And then I've also got some generics sitting around here, Dick CPEC Mud Countries, which are, I believe, right around the same class 1. So I think class 1s should fit on here pretty nicely, but as we follow the RTR rules, this definitely being an ARTR, it's going to go out for its maiden voyage on the foamless 90mm tires, and we're all together going to finally get to see how it goes. All right, let's see what we're going to get. I apologize for that spike of sunlight. Oh, well, look who's here. I mean, why not? Straight at Slick Rock, right? Yeah, these tires have about as much grip as I would anticipate. The throttle control is non-existent. It's kind of an on-off switch. Surprisingly, like, I'm not getting hung up. Oh. Yeah, it's 100% reverse. And I could just do that. I don't think foams would help these tires. Wow. We may go straight into revision 1. 26 turns is way too much. Way too much. Let's drive it up the apparatus, which is still here, from the tire test. Let's drive it up that and see if we get anything different. All right, let's see what the 40 degree is like. If we can even get up it. Yeah, this is just a slightly rebadged Hobby Wing 1060. It has no control. Look at that. I mean, the drag brake will definitely outbrake the tire. But these tires have no grip at all. Mind you, this is 40 degree. I've got rigs here that'll do 60 degrees. That reverse though. Yeah, I mean, call it whatever we want to call it. Call it ARTR, call it RTR. I call it undrivable, adorable, but oh, like if you could feel what I'm feeling transmitted back through the trigger on this, not a problem with the radio. Oh, there's no fine control. None. Now that might not be the speed control, that could be primarily motor. This is far too much motor. Why would they put a 26 turn in this thing? You know what? I'm going to go around the 220 because you know what? I have to know. And 25 seconds. Just a hair over, right around 25 and a half seconds, which is, in my terms, in my crawler terms, that's far too fast. That's way too fast. It's about 45 seconds to walk it. So anything in the like 35 to 45 second range is in my opinion where you want to be. And if you've got a 2-speed, 25 seconds in second gear, that's fine. This thing has 1 gear, so 25 seconds is ridiculous. Now, perhaps their intention was 2S. But rather than go down a cell on the battery, I would prefer to go to a higher turn motor. And if you've watched any video prior to this one, you know I have some of those. So I think we're gonna go all the way up right now. We're gonna make a this will be the unboxing, testing, assembly / revision 1. Let's just haul this thing in there. Put the Vanimals OE tires on it and put that Hobby Park 55 turn in there and see what we get. All right, we've already arrived at a quick note. Zipped back here on the way too fast 26 turn, and we've arrived at a quick note about what I would call the CMX not being cruelty-free. The super long extendo came into play because you've got to go up through there. If I can get, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it to focus. You've got to go all the way up under right there to get to the motor cover. And then you can see, if I look down there, there's the bottom screw for the motor. The upper screw for the motor, if you can see, is, I'm just going to point with a tool. The upper screw for the motor is right there. Focus. There we are. is right, if I can turn the spur a little. There it is, right there. So, I guess the easiest method is to take the spur off. Is this going to be another vehicle where servicing anything on the transmission, the best way to go is to just pull the whole gearbox out? It's definitely looking that way. It is a good looking spur gear. It looks machined and not molded, which I'm a fan of that. It does have quite a big pinion gear on there. So there's definitely a lot of room to gear this thing down. And I think at this current moment, what I am going to do is pop the tape off of there. And because I don't run big monster stick packs, I'm going to put that right there. Probably flip the battery around so that the leads aren't so long, which will make it a lot easier. I won't have to snake the power wires under the motor like that. And then I can actually drive it without the motor cover on it because there'll be no wires or anything here in the back. So revision 1 has begun after 5 minutes of wheel time. Like I said, it is an ARTR. This isn't a kit. This isn't an RTR. This isn't an ARTR even. This thing is a project. If you're going to get yourself an MST CMX, get it because you enjoy wrenching on things. And at this point, I have no recommendations. Not yet. We will see. I still feel like it's a bargain at $200, but let's get it up a rock first. So yes, with the CMX in its conventional configuration, any working on it turns into a thing. If you want to get to... So in order to move the speed control from back there, there's a little notch on the side of the gearbox. So you have to take the receiver box, the underslung receiver box off to get the plug through, to get that back out through there. To get the receiver box off, you have to take the battery tray out. Now, mind you, that's only 4 screws. That's not a huge issue. To get to the pinion gear, you definitely, and to get the motor off, you definitely have to take the transmission out. And my guess is, having done no research, the gearbox in here has to be a holdover from something else. That is a 35 tooth pinion. So with an 88 tooth spur, you have so much motor adjustment, you can fit a 35 tooth pinion on there. And I honestly think you might be able to fit a little bit bigger. It's not even all the way over. But the next step up I have is a 41, and you can't fit a 41. So you could probably get up to like a 38 tooth pinion on here, should that be a thing that you want. And you can go down to like sub 20. I think you could fit a 19 tooth on there. It's pretty rare to see something have that much range of gear adjustment. So the ability to fit a 35 tooth, you could put whatever the highest turn motor you can find. Like this is a 55, and I'm going to put, I think, a 22 on there. That's where I'm going to start. But boy, do I have gearing options. Tell you what. I'm going to try to get this thing put back together. Oh, and you can get to the motor screws through the hole in the spur gear. It's not the best arrangement, but I managed to get this. Well, you couldn't with this gear. It's directly under the tooth. But with the 22, I can just get a wrench right through one of the big holes. So let's put it back together and pray to all the goddesses above that a 22 will work, because otherwise you got to take the whole thing apart to change the pinion gear again. Another quick note, as I have to have the entire thing pulled apart to get to the motor. If I have the receiver box and receiver, which they don't tape that in, if I have the receiver box and receiver all the way out, I might as well address the noisy. But you got to give them props on the noisy. Look at that. Like it won't fit in the frame. That's like an 18-inch servo lead. I am tired of getting the servo that has a lead like that long. So you get to put an extension on it. So it's going to get replaced with bin servo. Good old DS3225 from Amazon, like a $20 servo. This was not bought for this process. This is kind of the backup servo. Whenever any rig has a servo problem, this goes in there. Whenever I'm testing, like adding a dig or something into something, this is the test servo that goes in there. So it also, you know, is a very used, but still not as long as the other one. The other one was about put another 2-3 inches on there. So hopefully I have a horn that lines up pretty straight. We'll throw that in there just because, like I say, no real fault against this. It is but other than the double-edged sort of a Savox. It's a Savox, so it's going to work. It's a Savox. It's noisy. It's also super, super light. So I don't think all the gears in there are metal. This thing is a chonker compared to this. So yeah, that's another thing before I can get this thing back out there. And then I did notice, really quickly looking, when they said bushings, they meant it. So there's everything in here is a bushing. At this point, the only 2 bearings in this truck are the ones in the motor. And I believe this has bearings in it. The one that's coming out probably didn't. So I've added 4 bearings. So I'm going to get those put back together. And, you know, I don't know. I'm like gleefully excited about this thing. It's so adorable. And I think I can make it wheel. So I'm going to do that. And like I say, revision 1 is usually no dollars spent. And everything that's here was already here. I would really love to keep this thing. But I know that a Hobby Wing 1060 is $20. So it's no loss if I replace a $20 speed control. But if I can manage to get some trigger control by going down to a really high turn motor, great. The servo is whatever. I have more. I have a box labeled servos. And it's not really a problem with the bushings either. Because as I have mentioned in the past, I've been at this for a little while. And these are just the bins of 5mm bushings. So I don't have to buy anything to put bushings in this. I just have to take it apart completely and put bushings in it. Which is also generally a good thing to do when you have RTRs anyway, because there's a good chance that there's next to nothing inside the gearbox. Seeing as if the shocks come empty, you can't bank on a lot of grease being inside the transmission. So about time to, I'll slap that in. Then it'll be about time to power up the soldering iron to desolder this guy. Another motor for the bin. The motor bin is heavy. So I'll get these electronics put up, and it's got to be better, right? Like, it's going to be better. I'm just going to call it the Jimny. The Jimny is definitely a process. I kind of like the look of it with the Charisma wheels. They're only a tiny bit taller. And every bit as grippy. Can't even get up on the 40% at all, period. So they have less grip than the foamless OE tires. Let's just give it a little helper. So unsurprisingly, there's a ton of drag brake in a 55 turn, but no grip in the tires at all. So any application of throttle, it just slides right off. Maybe let's try, I can't really de-steepen it. I don't know. It's a process. You know what, let's go over there. Let's try climbing something a little different. The steering angle actually feels pretty good. Is this guy up or up? Yeah, these are, like I had mentioned when I was doing the Vanimal build, I didn't know if these were bad because I only drove it for a few seconds and it just got hung up on everything. These are really no better than the foamless. Yeah, that surging is really noticeable now. I thought something, like, I thought a screw had fallen in the motor. It's bizarre. I just went from a 26 turn to a 55 turn, and the control isn't much better. It's a little better. It's still, I mean, I guess we can chalk that up to the 1060. See if we can get any drag brake on these tires. Oh yeah, the drag brake will out drag the tires by a lot. This thing isn't even a trail truck. This is a nothing. It can't climb a basic rock. And a lot of it is because the drive shafts are ponging around. Approach angle's pretty good. It's abysmal. I mean, at the same time, the MST CMX RTR is that good buddy of yours that will come over to your house and drink the last of the milk and put the empty carton back in the fridge. This thing is going to require some work to get it to behave. It is, this is not a rock crawler, because in RTR configuration and in the revision 0.5 configuration, you can't really climb rocks with it. I'm thinking a big part of the problem is the speed control. The other big part of the problem is those drive shafts. It's an on-off switch, and then when you turn it on, the lights go into flicker mode, like when the ballast in a fluorescent light is going out. So it's like just watch it drive. Look, you can hear that. I don't know. This is definitely going to be some work. So if you want an RTR, don't buy this. Even at $200, the amount of work that's going to have to go into this, not just money-wise, but work-wise, is going to take this thing up to, you could take an Ecto home, legitimately. I'm going to have to replace a lot. You know what? Before we wrap this, let me throw the KLRs on here just to see if I can make it go up before addressing the drive shaft issues. I'll see if I can even drive it back to the shop without having to carry it, and then let's try it with some bigger tires on it. So it now obviously on tires that are 16 millimeters taller than stock has a tire rub like a monster in the front. The rear is actually all right, and I love the look of it. Bigger tires should actually help slow wheel speed down a little bit. And that's the first glimmer of promise we've gotten yet. I may indeed buy it, some of its very own tires. J Concepts and RC four-wheel drive both make tires in that like 3.93 inch, so that 95, 96 millimeter. I think these particular class ones are a little too tall. Gearing reduction is essentially non-existent on this. It's running a 22 tooth pinion and an 88 tooth spur, so that's 4-to-1. And on a 55 turn, it's still pretty fast. I think any motor would give you a significant amount of drag brake. I've now rolled it twice. But what we have is an assembly of correctable issues. Like, I went into this, oh, there she is. I went into this with foolhardy notions that, like, my biggest issues would be, oh, it's got plastic links and it's, unbeknownst to me, full of bushings. But the problems are more endemic. Its climbing ability is hindered by the fact that the drive shafts doing that pop and lock are causing the tires to lose grip on whatever surface you try to drive them on. Like, it should be able to put a wheel up over that, but it just won't. I don't, yeah. As this has new tires on it, we'll call this the .75 version, which it's uphill from here, folks. There's a good amount of work to do to this thing to get it to be what it's supposed to be, a rock crawler. But at the same time, it's adorable. That is a good tire rub. I like it with the black steelies. I like it with the, I like it with the big beefy tire. I'm not giving up on it. I don't give up that easy. So this will be a series. We're getting in. We're going in deep. Thanks for watching, everybody.